This week on the show, we start our autumn grimoire of fantastical freaks or whatever.
Or
I believe
whatever.
it is Familiar Killers.
Fantastical freaks.
Yeah. It's the Halloween Grimoire of Familiar Freaks.
Yeah, check this out.
Print it. Oh, look, you got your little pumpkin. You're going to make a jack-o'-lantern?
Check this out. I'm wearing the shirt I drew.
That's the wrong shirt for tonight. You got to save that for...
I didn't print the Chucky one.
Here, I got the perfect thing.
I hope it's the picture I drew
Is it
printed on
a
something
striped
like a
shirt
plate.
with some overalls?
I got the perfect thing for tonight's episode.
Okay, that's not
Oh my
bad.
god.
Although it doesn't have the cool red on it that this movie had.
I wish I had overalls. So Jason, when we originally started doing this, I wanted to try and dress up as one of the characters every time. And I think I only did it twice.
How far...
There was the short shorts for Wet Hot, and then there was the cigarette pack and the shirt for Stand By Me.
Right. How would you have been able to get the things together to do tonight's movie?
I would have worn overalls and a striped shirt.
Yeah, well, that's all you need, really.
They sell like adult pajamas that are basically the Chucky's overalls in like the colorful rainbow shirt underneath, and the footy pajamas. So they have like the plot point where he steps in the flower. That's on the bottom.
Why was there a gun tread? What's up with those treads on the bottom of the...
Oh, it was the 80s. Kids loved guns in the 80s.
It's true. It was all very weird.
Hey,
so
if you pinned?
I didn't pin it correctly this time, so I am just gonna pin it in the chat.
Hey Steve, are you behind the words on your end?
Am I behind the words on my end? What does that mean?
Like, so on my end, I'm on the stage left, or maybe I'm stage right. I guess.
Oh, I'm always. If you're looking at my phone, I'm always on the left bottom.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
for me,
I am. Yeah.
It's swapped.
So at the end, whenever you're pointing at me, it's always pointing in the wrong direction, but I never correct you because I think it's funny.
So welcome to the Halloween Grimoire of Carnivorous Killers.
Familiar Killers.
Carnivorous.
Listen, I named it by accident, and if you don't want to name it correct, you're the one who decided to go with that naming scheme, and I feel like you're purposefully messing it up.
I am. I keep... What, Grimoire?
Yeah. Grimoire, which is like a encyclopedia. Yeah.
Like a tome or a book.
Yeah.
Cool.
In the video game Final Fantasy XIV, the scholars and the summoners use grimoires, and they do their little magic tricks out of the book, and they attack with the book. Pretty fun. But This isn't a television podcast show about Final Fantasy. This is I'm going to try to get it right this time. The Halloween Grimoire of Familiar Killers this week is very special to me. It's Child's Play.
Did you see this one?
Starring the good boy, and we gotta ask, hey, did you see this one? I would like to start off by telling you guys about my history with Child's Play. When I was a child, I was so simultaneously filled with wonder and horrified by the idea of a doll coming to life. Now, the irony is that this movie couldn't be less scary as a movie. It almost plays as a action movie. There are some parts that are definitely horror, right? But the movie really plays like there's more gun violence in this movie than anything else. Every stab that the doll takes misses.
Yeah. I was also, I mean, the idea of dolls coming to life as a horrifying machination for storytelling has been around since the beginning of storytelling, really. Like, even since early cinema, like the first horror stories were always something stupid and strange like that. And goes right up to like today, right? Like the Annabelle series is like been going for what, like 10 years now.
Yeah.
And they have the Boy movies. But I think that something that differentiates Chucky as a character is that Chucky has been around for 30 years, and he's soon to get a television show. It's coming up very soon, which I'm very excited
And the
about.
reboot starring Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah, the
came
reboot
out
was okay.
two
The reboot
years
was all
ago.
right. I kind of liked it, but I really like Brad Dourif as Chucky. So
Yeah.
not having him there and not having the sort of like the Chucky that you're familiar with, which I guess this is the introduction to. It's not the same, right? It doesn't feel. It just feels like a Killer Doll movie. They could have taken the Child's Play name away from that movie and just had it be its own thing, and it would have been the exact same thing. That's kind of how I felt about it. There were some fun kills, some good characters, but it wasn't Chucky. It wasn't the Chucky I know and love.
No, and this has the distinction of having a very, very interesting turn from the doll just disappearing and you don't see him until a pivotal point in the movie where they turn this doll that had no facial expression into a full-on animatronic nightmare, except for long wide shots. The long wide shots where it's obviously a little person in a Chucky costume and he's not moving right because he's moving like there's like a person.
It's just like a little person doing a weird cartoon creep, like ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Are we talking about this one or the remake?
No,
the new one. This one. Not the new one. Yeah,
I think
sorry.
there
The new one, I think,
two
is all
shots
robots
where
and
it was
CG.
the kid's sister. It was Andy's actual sister.
Oh, really?
Like, I think they used both. So, for example, like the end when he's on fire, that wasn't the sister or whatever.
I would hope not. I hope they didn't light a child on fire. No, yeah, it was a mixture of children and little people. I think they used 2 little people and 2 children for the entirety of the film. Obviously, this stuff where they're doing super violent things and having to get tossed around and lit on fire were stunt performers, and the ones where they wanted them to be legitimately tiny is when they got actual kids to be in there.
Yeah.
I think that the reason why it maybe wasn't so gory with humans is so the shock of a burnt up melting Chucky at the end. That was the only part that really made me go, ugh. That looked so
nasty,
fucking good. And also the other part that made me cringe, the only thing that really made me go like, whoa, was when he went into like the shaman's place and he was doing the mojo doll. That's what they call it in this movie. It's a voodoo doll, but he's like, I got your mojo. And he's stabbing, or he's breaking his limbs. And they showed it like, they didn't show compound fractures or anything, but they did like his arm would like snap backwards or his leg. And that's the only thing that really made me go, oh shit. I was marveling throughout this whole movie at the fucking cinematography. Like this movie is very, very well made for being an 80s like dumb slasher. Like the storyline.
Fun fact: the cinematographer on this movie is the same cinematographer who made the movie Jaws. So.
Okay, so that's why everything looks so awesome.
It looks good, yeah.
I noticed it was directed by Tom Holland, and I was like, wouldn't Tom Holland have been negative 20?
Would he have not been born yet? Yeah. Well, he is breaking into the multiverse, so he went back in time into a different universe where Chucky had not been made yet and directed it.
That's funny. That's funny.
Before we break away from your history, too far, I would also like to say my history with this movie is that I was too terrified to watch it until I was pretty much a full-grown adult. I remember the Halloween season when I was a kid, they would always have horror movies on TV, and I would be, frightened, too scared to watch them. I would watch like the kids' version of stuff, like the Goosebumps specials and the Are You Afraid of the Dark specials,
right? Which,
in comparison, Chucky is not that much more scary than like the ventriloquist dummy episodes of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Besides when he calls the mom a filthy slut, I think he's like, get your fucking hands off me, you filthy slut. I think
what he says is, you stupid bitch, you filthy slut.
Yeah,
I'll teach you to fuck with me.
I think that's like the only cursing in the whole movie. Like there wasn't a lot of swearing even.
Well, Linda was a bitch or whatever
he's
the
a serial killer. He's a serial killer of women, and he clearly hates women. I think that's like supposed to be an aspect of his character. Like there's even a point later in the movie, or no, earlier in the movie, where after the Aunt Maggie gets murdered, and she's like, "What happened?" And then the kid says, "Aunt Maggie." Chucky says Aunt Maggie was a real bitch and she got what she deserved. And it's like this little kid delivering this line, but you can hear Chucky's voice saying it, right? Like
it was perfect.
Anyway, so when I was a kid, I was so terrified of Chucky just from the box art and like walking through Blockbuster.
Well, that's just it, right? The box art makes it seem like a hard R slasher with like a fucking axe to the face at every turn. And I think the later movies go into that, but like the first like Halloween, the first one is kind of just him stalking, and Friday the 13th Part 1 only really has a couple really gross parts, you know. And I think it even Saw, the original Saw movie, only it isn't that bad. And actually Insidious I watched recently, and those are known for their, you know, wacky camp gore. The first Insidious movie is just a bunch of jump scares. So I think that's like how you start a franchise.
Well, I think the idea is more terrifying than the actual movie, right? Like, I keep saying, like, I was so scared of this movie before I even watched it, and it was just the idea of Chucky that was scary to me. It wasn't the movie itself. I hadn't seen any of it. I'd seen, like, maybe little, like, brief advertisements for it on, like, a horror movie marathon on Showcase or whatever.
Right.
And I remember even just hearing a radio advertisement for it, and it was the line where it's like, "Hi, I'm Chucky, want to play?" And like hearing that, I was like, like as a child being like, "Oh no, Chucky's gonna come kill me."
Chucky wants to play.
Yeah, and I was like so scared of just that audio clip somehow. It was just the idea of a doll, like a creepy doll coming to life and wanting to kill me. Which in this movie, that's not even really what he wants. Like he's just a guy who got put in a bad situation. Obviously, he was a bad guy, and he had to make one of two choices: get arrested or use a voodoo curse to put himself into a doll's body. And
hope that he gets electrocuted at
store. Yeah.
Hope that he gets electrocuted at the right exact time while he's doing an incantation to a doll. Yeah, and then hope that doll gets stolen by a peddler, which they kept calling the homeless guy a peddler, which I thought was fucking weird. And then,
well, it's because he's selling his wares out of a grocery cart.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, that guy. So when they buy the thing from him or whatever, and she asks if he stole her or whatever, and then he's like, "Steal this," and like grabs his crotch, and then Maggie's like, "Steal this yourself." Like, it made me think of rape.
Well, he tries to rape the mom later.
Try and rape, yeah. Also, like, what does that mean? Steal this? Like, I guess
her vagina. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, but he doesn't even. Okay. Anyway, let's not talk about that because that's stupid and dumb. I don't want to get into a deep, dark conversation about like sexual assault in the Chucky movie because there's so much other shit we can talk about other than that stupid homeless guy who gets a knee in the balls later on and is like, "Oh, I found it in a burnt-out toy store." Before
we move on, Kaylin, what was your like experience with this movie growing up? Did you see it at a young age? Is this the first time you've ever sat down and actually watched it? What's your background?
Well, Jason, so growing up, I never saw any of the original, any horror movies in general. And I don't think it was out of like fear or anything. It just wasn't my style. Like I was more so into comedies and stuff, and I just never got around to them. As of the past year or two, I think last Halloween, maybe the Halloween before, is like, you know what? Let me check out these movies I'm missing out on. And I gotta tell you, these are comedies. Like I've been watching these old school movies. They're comedies. They're hilarious.
This one and Nightmare on Elm Street is like Bugs Bunny. You know, I'm really excited for that next week.
It's crazy because like the true horror is stuff like The Shining or The Exorcist, like stuff that can actually make you feel uneasy and scared that isn't going to be goofy at any point. But these, you know, Child's Play, like primarily the ones we're going to review, aside from Halloween has no humor in it whatsoever. There's no funny Halloween movie that exists. except for the third one, sort of.
Well, Season of the Witch is like is like objectively funny because of
Is
how
that the one
bad
with the
it is.
masks?
Yeah.
Yes.
They were trying to turn it into an anthology series, and it just failed. And then the next movie, they went right back to Michael Myers because they were like, "Well, that didn't work."
Yeah, I mean, I was the same way, Kalen. When I was younger, I was too scared to watch horror movies. My mom used to use a tactic on me when I was a kid to not get me to watch movies that she didn't want me to watch, which was to say, "That's a scary movie. You don't want to watch it." And
I think that happened to me too. Or it might have been similarly. My mom was like that, but I think my dad traumatized me and showed me all of these movies because when I'm sitting and watching, there was this and Hellraiser, and there was another Stand By Me.
Hellraiser is a straight up horror movie. That doesn't.
That one's pretty brutal. But what I'm saying is, like, at the time, I think my dad used to watch all these horror movies on like a Saturday afternoon, and I would just be around playing in the house. So I would probably walk up to the, and my dad might just be like, "Well, don't you go play?" And
I don't mean to jump in, but I think that we've already talked about this exact thing during the Jaws podcast.
and Stand By Me, in fact.
Yeah, that was his Saturday afternoon. Like, I'm gonna have a couple Coors and watch Stand By Me.
Exactly.
On that train of thought about telling your mom telling you that it was scary to make you not watch it, did your guys' moms ever tell you everything was chicken so that you would eat it?
No.
I was pretty good at eating stuff when I was a kid. I wasn't one of those kids that wouldn't eat things.
Let's drill down into that, Caleb.
Everything.
So she'd be like, "Here's a steak. Here's a steak. It's chicken."
Yeah. So we were talking about how it's obvious at points that there's somebody wearing a Chucky head, and it's a human, whether it be a child or a little person. I looked a little bit further into it because I was like, I wonder, because like little people are not the size. They're mostly like going to be bigger than the Andy. I think his name's Alex Vincent, the actor, who's actually pretty good.
That's
we'll talk about him a little bit later. But
tell me you're going to talk about the set.
Yeah, because I had questions. Did they make slightly bigger?
They did. Yeah, they did some forced perspective, and they also built oversized sets. They didn't put any adults on it. It was always the kid and the Chucky actor that were only in them. So one specific example is at the end when he's all burnt and he's like slowly walking up to Andy and he's shuffling backwards. That like sort of whatever that table, the like hallway table, is slightly oversized so that the little person looks smaller than it, but it's actually just like a larger table. And
you can tell they
did a forced perspective where Andy was closer to the camera. And
you can tell that they built sets for those moments because they spend an extra amount of time, so they use the shit that they built. And I noticed that that hallway scene, they spent a lot of time in that hallway near the end of burnt to shit Chucky just skulking, especially when they're shooting his limbs off. I was
that
like,
reminded me of RoboCop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? The funny thing is that I was looking also at like the original script for this, and it sounds almost more like a Paul Verhoeven movie than what it ended up being. Like the original script was supposed to be like more satirical and have a lot of the effects of advertisement on youth.
Well, the whole opening.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking like the whole movie was meant to, like even like none of the magic was there. Yeah. The Chucky dolls were meant to have blood inside them, like it was manufactured to have blood inside them, so that if they got hurt, they would bleed, and it would be an incentive for a kid to take better care of a doll. You know, like when people are in high school and they're like taking those like matron courses or whatever to like be better moms. It was like that.
Every sitcom in existence, but I never had to do that thing in high school.
I didn't have to take care of an egg or a baby that would cry every 5 minutes unless you pressed a button on its back.
Or a bag of flour.
On that point, though, it definitely, and like this is something that I've noticed as I've gotten older, is like, damn, like I was a dumb kid who was very able to, advertising, to say the least. Like, ooh, I want that toy, or ooh, I want, those sneakers or whatever.
I wasn't really, because I only liked what I liked. So like when I saw commercials for things that I didn't think were either useful or interesting, I was like, whatever. And it wasn't like every single commercial made me want something, but I
I
do
was
remember
a crackhead for toys. At Christmas, I
so,
got the
yeah.
catalog, and I would I'd be like, okay, I'm going to circle what I want for Christmas, and I would end up giving my mom this like this, like catalog with like every other thing circled. She'd always make the joke, "Why don't you just tell me what you don't want,
Yeah.
and then I'll see what I can do from there." I wasn't spoiled though. I'd still only get like I'd still get like a regular amount of gifts, but
Jason, we don't assume you were a spoiled kid. You seem pretty humble.
I can't tell if you're.
You seem like an only child.
No, yeah.
Hey,
no,
you seem like an only child.
I wasn't being sarcastic or facetious. Anyway, yeah, that would have been an interesting take. Maybe more interesting than the actual movie is, because one of the downsides of this movie is that you see Charles Lee Ray right at the beginning go into the toy store, have a shootout with a cop, die, put himself into the doll. You know he's in the doll. And then throughout the entire movie, there's this sort of like pointless mystery plot between the mom, the cop, and the psychiatric institute.
Well, the audience knows, and they're running around doing this pointless mystery bullshit. There should have been more Chucky doing kills, and I am actually excited. I'm going to go find the sequel's on Amazon Prime. I'm going to go watch it because I want to see more Chucky nonsense.
The second Child's Play,
how they make a sequel.
So much. The second Child's Play is amazing. It's so good. And then there's the third one, which is kind of a stinker, and then Bride and Seed. Seed is really bad, but Bride is pretty good. Cult. And then Cult and Curse.
I saw Cult. I've seen the Cult is the one with the mental institution, right?
Yeah, and multiple Chuckies. That one's not as good as Curse. Curse is really good. It's like a classic haunted house movie with a murderer in it. I'm very excited for the show because again, Brad Dourif is coming back for Chucky, and it seems like Alex Vincent, the guy who plays Andy. He's been back in the last few movies playing the same character, and he's going to be back in the TV show, which is something I'm excited for. I don't know.
Like a dad now or something?
I forget. No, he's like hunting Chuckies and killing them. Because like in that last movie, he like figured out how to like split his soul up or whatever. Because in that last movie, he has like a severed Chucky head, and he's like burning it and torturing it, but like he'll give it a cigarette to smoke and stuff. It's like they're like have like a weird kind of friendship, sort of, because at the end of this movie, it's like we're friends forever. And then
I have a question about that actor. When he was in this movie, I couldn't tell if this kid was playing an extremely good, like he might have been a little bit older, or he might have just been an extremely good actor playing a mildly autistic kid, or if this kid was just a really bad actor.
No. What? I don't think he was a bad actor at all. I think that have you met like a 6-year-old? They're fucking stupid and don't know how to talk properly. This kid,
no, that's not even it. It was some of the weird when he did the same acting move every time he was in a room that Chucky was also in. He would back up and look around, and the really weird thing that was, I'm sure it was direction. Like it wasn't like it didn't happen organically. When he backed up into that thing when he was in the hospital, and he fell over. He was like, ugh, and then he backed up into another exactly the same thing. That read to me as comedy, and there were little things like that throughout the movie that read as comedy, but because the score in this movie is very haunting, didn't play as comedy.
Jason,
you know what I mean?
Acting is hard. I will say that the moment where he is calling for the doctor and he's in his cell and he turns around and starts crying and he's like, Chucky's gonna kill me. I was like, I believe that this kid is terrified, and he starts crying, and I'm like, this is amazing. And
how do you explain that to a kid? That's what I was wondering too.
Maybe he actually believed he was gonna die. I think that what they like, I know for a fact that they were nervous making this movie because there's very few movies that have a child in a straight up horror movie that is essentially the main protagonist, and they brought him in and like taught him how the animatronics worked and showed every sort of iteration of Chucky and like got him comfortable enough with the doll that he wasn't going to be freaked out on set and just start crying every time the doll was doing anything, right? So they got this kid like super comfortable with it, and even then they were still nervous, but he pulled it. He was like, yeah, whatever, it's not real, I understand, this is make believe. But you know, I do think that like near the beginning there's a couple of chunky, like he trips on his lines and stuff, but like that's just how kids actually talk. If you're talking to a kid who's like 4 to 6, they'll
I
start a
refuse to talk to
sentence.
kids that are 4 to 6. So
Okay, well there have been times
I
in
got
my
a
life
date
where I've
with
been
a
forced to.
6-year-old.
I used to work at a summer camp for a very long time, and
there you go.
Kids are just like, they'll start a sentence, they'll hiccup in the middle of the sentence. Sometimes they won't even pick up on the same sentence, and they'll start a new sentence. Like kids
That's
are
like
just like that.
There's a TikTok trend that was going on for a while where it was like people acting like kids, and the joke is like a kid comes up and says something like, "My mom has a new boyfriend this week, and he likes knives," and then look at this, and then does a fucking
spin.
cartwheel or a spin.
Yeah.
And that's, yes, of course, you're right. But the thing is, in Hollywood and making movies, you don't, they always say don't work with animals and kids. And when I see a movie like this and Stand By Me, movies where it's like a kid, The Sandlot, I guess The Sandlot and Stand By Me, they're a little bit older, but when you see a 6-year-old, I can't help but sit there and wonder if this kid is like, a genius level 6-year-old dumbing himself down, or if they just found a 6-year-old that could like take direction perfectly to the point that
I think a good example is like, so I think this kid is just a kid that could competently deliver lines and then could also cry when he needed to.
Okay.
I that's probably what they probably brought him in the audition. They said like, can you cry when we need you to? And he probably just started crying in front of them. Which I know there's like
Alex Vincent watching this right now. Alex Vincent, can you join us and answer these questions, please?
Yeah. Yeah, Alex, do you remember any of it? I mean, I don't think I would remember being in a movie when I was 6 or 7 or however old he was.
You probably have like little glimpses of memories or whatever.
That's actually a really good point.
Only remember like very specific moments. But I know there's like an example of I can't remember the actor's name. He's all over the place now. But the kid who played Elliot in E.T., like the reason he got the role in E.T. is because in his audition, Steven Spielberg was like, "Well, why do you want this? Or why should I pick you for this role?" And he's like, "Because I can cry immediately on cue." And Steven Spielberg was like, "What?" And he just like started crying in the audition.
But that's why I bring up the fact, like, was this kid like a genius? Because only a kid with that much, at 6 or 7 years old, a kid with that much self-awareness is like genius level.
I don't think it was that. I think it was just that he had like natural little kid energy in terms of like the bulk of the movie, and then when it came down to the moments where it was important for him to be emotionally compromised, he was able to pull that off.
I do love that this kid is a fucking disaster, though. Right from the get-go, at every turn, he's just a little disaster who's creeping out his own mom. The breakfast in bed thing, the mess, the cereal is just like mostly cookies. Yeah. He takes like a pound of butter and puts it on burnt toast.
Also, the amount of sugar he puts into Fruit Loops.
Tablespoons. Oh, man. And then he goes into his mom's room. He's like, breakfast in bed. And then he gets all fucking indignant about getting clothes for his birthday. And then he gets a cool, like, little,
Why was the box so big?
Yeah.
Why was the box so big for a pair of pants?
Honestly,
pranked.
Mom, what the fuck?
That's what my mom used to do for me for Christmas.
Mom pranks.
Did your mom ever buy you a Chucky doll? Is that why you are the way you are now? Did you get haunted by a Chucky doll when you were a kid?
Also, why in the Chucky verse is this fucking doll just before any of the horror stuff? Even in the reboot, why in this universe is this kid's mascot, cartoon, and the doll all so fucking creepy? Like, I get it. It's like it's a movie thing. It's kind of breaking the fourth wall, and
why doesn't it look cuter?
You know what? There was one that they made.
No, why it looks like such a nightmare.
It was a Blumhouse movie, and I think it was part of an anthology or something. But it was called like Puka or something like that, and it was essentially the same sort of idea. Only the Puka doll, when it came to life, was like a giant mascot-sized thing, and it was like trying to kill somebody. But when it was a doll, it was very, very cute. And then when it was big, it was still sort of like you could see it dancing at a football game or something. But when it's trying to kill you, it's very scary. And
Well, that's what I was wondering about the Chucky doll, because if in the universe they could have had the Chucky doll be a little bit cuter if you're still going to go full facial animatronics, because I feel like when Chucky's face is moving around, he's like almost less creepy because he's more human looking.
well,
So,
okay, so
He starts
there
getting the
is something.
receding hairline because he's like
Yeah,
becoming
that's
more
what I was about
human.
to say.
oh, and his hair, like by the end, his hair's
Yeah,
slicked back.
there's something in the movie where as soon as he finds out that like from the his John, I think his name is John, the voodoo
The
man.
voodoo guy, yeah.
Yeah, he like explains to Chucky that he's gonna become the doll forever permanently, and it's like that'll be his body, and he's like slowly getting more and more human looking. Like his face becomes
Oh, okay.
paler, and he gets like bags under his eyes, and he starts to become more human looking as the movie goes on, which is pretty interesting. And it's also something that carries over into the other movies if you decide you're going to revisit those. But
I'm going to now.
I'm gonna watch
Yeah.
2 and 3. I know 3 is like that. It's got the third movie syndrome, but that's the posters and the trailers that I remember the most. He's
Well,
with that.
the
He's
third
with the
movie
little
came out.
kid, and they
The third movie came
go
out
on a little
9 months,
adventure.
9 months after the second movie.
Okay.
They came out within the
Cash
same
grab.
year. Well, that's
Sequelitis.
exactly what it was. Yeah. Well, the same writer has written every single movie. He's been around since the beginning. And
Wow.
Steve, I think you were going to mention something earlier about like the original kind of plot was like there was going to be more suspense as to whether or not we, the audience, knew that Chucky was doing it, or if it was actually the kid.
They had the Charles Lee Ray stuff, but it wasn't the same. It was like more ghostly. It wasn't a literal magical like Ade Dua Dembala, give me the power, I beg of you. Like it's just he gets. I think it was supposed to be he was in like an electric chair and he gets killed in prison and his soul goes out, and then it's like implied that maybe it goes into the doll. And but it was supposed to be ambiguous as to whether or not the kid was watching too much TV and he was seeing after these commercials like not advertisements, newsreels of this Charles Lee Ray murderer and his execution, and he was like saying Charles Lee Ray is my doll kind of thing, and like it was supposed to be you didn't know if it was the kid or if it was the doll.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Dead, whatever.
Yeah, it would have been more suspenseful, and it would have been more like the gears would have been turning, but this has been in the zeitgeist and sort of like the part of the horror culture for so long that like we don't even really think about it that much anymore, especially when you go back after like maybe you've seen them all, maybe you've only seen a few of them, but you've seen some of them at some point in your life. They've been around for
the DNA of that
ever.
ghost thing is in the movie, because I did make a note about how when the kid, they're being interrogated, I think at that point later, and the kid's like the doll's spirit was sent down from heaven on his dad's behalf, which I think was the doll whispered that to him.
Oh yeah,
like you know what I mean, like that. The DNA of all the things are at the end when they actually finally, he's like shoot him in the heart. Blood comes out of the doll.
Yeah.
As well, to go back to what you're saying about how there was a story beat of at one point where the dolls had synthetic blood in them. So it all that stuff seems to be remnants of it still seem to be in the movie, but what we came away with was a coherent movie. But I think that like the way the movie looks, the feel of the movie, the vibe of the movie is bigger. The story's kind of weak. It's kind of like things keep happening. It's kind of like a regular slasher thing. The voodoo stuff felt kind of tacked on. It would have been much better if it was what you said.
It
where
is tacked
a
on,
kid,
but it also carries over through every sequel. And
okay.
I think for the better, even though some of it is like by the end it becomes just like comedic fodder. I like magic, especially in horror movies. Like I think it's a fun thing to fall back on because you don't have to really worry about it. It's always good to be able to explain things, but this isn't a thriller. You don't need to know every single thing that's going on. If you just want to toss it at magic, you can toss it at magic. I love, like I already said it would be probably more interesting in terms of a mystery if it wasn't handed to us that Charles Lee Ray is Chucky right at the beginning. But I love that part when he's like calling down the lightning and like doing a spell in the middle of it, like in the middle of a shootout.
I had forgotten about that completely. Yeah.
And your partner and my own partner.
Did you
And
guys
all the
notice
dolls fall on top of him.
Yeah.
at the very beginning, like almost the opening scene, and I had to go back and check it out after I heard about it. But so what's his name? Chris Sarandon, Mike the cop or whatever.
Yeah.
He was apparently dressed as drag, trying to catch him. So Steve, what you were saying earlier about Charles or whatever being like a woman, whatever. So like he was like at the opening scene when he's chasing him, you can see him throw. He throws a dress away. He takes off his dress and throws it away.
Yeah, I do remember reading or watching a video or something about something like that as well. Like there was like a point where he was like following Charles Lee Ray, and he was like supposed to like pose as a victim, because like it doesn't really like specifically say that he is the Lakeshore Strangler who only strangles women, but he's a serial killer.
I missed that plot beat completely. Yeah, I missed that completely. From my point of view, it was some sort of deal gone wrong, and he was being pursued. He was being pursued by the cop, and his buddy was a snitch, so they were having like a three-way fight at the beginning.
I think that's kind of what it was implied, is that like he did have partners, because he goes back and kills his partner in the middle of the movie. Yeah. Remember, he gets the kid to take him on the bus to the other side of town.
That's the cinematography. I want to bring this up. That's the cinematography I love the most. Them going from the inner city out to the projects, and then it being winter and the snow being so vibrant. And I watched this on a big screen TV. I watched it on Amazon Prime, so it's the best quality probably you can watch it in. It was clearly shot on like 35 millimeter, because it looked. Steve, like, I don't even want to hear it. It looked upscaled as fuck. It was crystal clear. And I love snow in video games and movies.
Do you like crystal clear oldies as opposed to grainy original oldies?
They're two different things for me. Like I would love to go into somebody's dank basement and watch this on the CRT TV through VHS.
Right, yeah, on a VHS, yeah.
But I just couldn't believe how the high fidelity of the scenes with snow on the ground looked so fucking vivid and cool to me.
You know what? You hit a bunch of the points I was going to make, but I'll just add on to that. I also love snow in movies, but I love snow in horror movies specifically.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate? What do you mean you love snow in movies?
Snow in movies is often it obviously it blankets a scene, and it creates such a contrast to a character moving through it, or something, trees poking out of it. It just looks very appealing to the eye.
Think about The Shining. Think about the snow, how the snow plays a role in The Shining. And looking at the maze, scenes with the maze in the backyard and everything, and when he's frozen, and just how like it's so serene, but at the same time the underlying horror of just what winter at nighttime. And what's happening in this scene is the kid goes to take a leak. Chucky goes off, fucking goes into this house, turns out the pilot light, and then the guy shooting at Chucky blows up the house. All the kids just like, oh, I'm a dumb kid. And then, you know what I mean? And then the next scene is like it's like a sitcom beat where the next scene they're back in the fucking, they're back in the cop house. And it's like, how did you even get out there? Like, how did you go out to the fucking worst part of town?
Chucky told him how to get there.
Yeah, Chucky told me how to get there. I don't know.
I was trying to think of I watched 30 Days of Night last night. I realized while watching it, the first 30 minutes of that movie are great, and then the rest is just kind of boring. But
yeah, I know, I've never seen it.
Another snowy horror movie.
Yeah, I do know that.
The Shining
is
a good example. I don't know. There's something about a horror movie. Rain is creepy, night is creepy, but snow is just there's something about. When you're in the middle of the forest and it's snowy and everything is just eerily quiet and you can just hear the light, the breeze.
Yeah.
I hope they finally got that lawsuit solved with the Jason franchise. I hope the next Jason movie is a
Christmas one?
Outside. Yeah.
A Christmas Friday the 13th would be dope as shit, I think.
Or just a wintry one.
The blood on the snow, we'll get into it when we do Friday the 13th in a couple weeks, but the thing about Friday the 13th, they go back to how '80s horror movies are all like borderline comedies. That's like you're watching that for the ridiculous kills.
Yeah.
You know, like you want to see in what new weird way he's going to fucking kill a guy. And then Friday the 13th, or Freddy's going to go into your dream and kill you in a weird, like, pop culture-y way while he's wisecracking. And you're right, Halloween is a blank stare guy who just pops out from around the corner.
He's just a scary guy, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're going to see a huge contrast.
Halloween is more like how much can the people in the movie fuck up Michael Myers and have him keep going. Jason is like creative kills with instruments and stuff. Freddy is like creative kills in like you said, a pop culture way. Like, I don't know, it'll be like, like somebody will be dreaming about like
we're at the destruction derby and I'm the car.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's voter fraud.
Yeah.
And like a claw comes out of a voter booth or something. And then Chucky is more about Chucky. Like, it's more about him being like, God damn it, I gotta find that kid again. Like, I
gotta get into that kid's body.
Yeah.
What was your guys' favorite line? What was like one of your guys' favorite lines?
I mean, as much as it's vile, it's "you stupid bitch, you fucking filthy slut. I'll teach you to fuck with me." Like, that's
you filthy slut. Made me laugh. I was working and I had the movie on in the background. And that happened, and I was like, that's fucking, I'm making a note of that, because that was very good writing. Because it's the first time he says anything beyond, like, we're friends.
Yeah, it is.
He's like, you bitch.
And then after this movie, he doesn't even he doesn't do the Chucky voice really at all after this. Like, for the next 7 movies after, it's just him being like, all right, let's take care of business. Also, Brad Dourif. Can we talk about him for a minute?
Before we do, I just gotta say one thing. God. I gotta tip my hat to the kid and his zinger at the end. This is the end, friend. I don't know why, but it stood out to me. I like it.
It's because he delivers it like he was watching like he saw it on a commercial, or he saw it at the end of a Good Guy episode or something, and he just said it like he was like regurgitating it, which is like. He probably was just regurgitating it from the director, but it sounded like he was regurgitating it from a TV show or a commercial, which is like kind of the point, right? Like it's
the DNA left behind. If he
didn't want this doll so badly, this movie wouldn't have happened.
No.
It would have been that peddler. He would have got killed by Chucky right away.
You were gonna talk about Brad Dourif though, or
yes, it's Dourif.
Dourif.
Yeah. He plays Charles Lee Ray at the beginning. He also does the voice for Chucky, and then continues to do the voice of Chucky.
He's been in a few things.
Oh God, yeah. If you don't recognize him in this movie, you will know. I mean, The Lord of the Rings, I guess, is probably the biggest one that he's in.
Yeah.
He plays Wormtongue. He plays Wormtongue, the guy who's like, I told you to take the wizard's staff. He's like the guy who like helps Saruman or whatever. He kills Saruman.
He's the old crusty king, isn't he? He's the old, like, when they go to...
he's not the old crusty king. He's like the old crusty king's like advisor, who's like
right.
Yeah.
Which I think
I recognize
Peter Jackson is he was a horror director before he did anything really, right? And there's no doubt in my mind that Brad Dourif like auditioned for Lord of the Rings, and he was like, "Don't worry, Brad. We'll find a role for you somewhere.
We'll find a plot for you, mate."
Yeah. How'd you like to play Wormtongue? Yeah. He's been in Star Trek. He was in the third Exorcist movie, which is actually really good as well. I don't know if
I just did as the Gemini Killer. I'm looking at his IMDb right now. This guy's been working right up till today.
Cuckoo's Nest. He was in the new Halloween.
His daughter is in the last 2 Chucky movies, and cool. She's now becoming like the main sort of like one of the main characters. I think she's going to be in the show as well, which is kind of cool. She was in Dirk Gently. She's like the one who's crazy and can like predict when people are attacking her. She can just like
that character is fucking amazing. I love that character, and that's the only reason I wish that show was still going.
Yeah,
the super like crazy serial killer.
It would be really cool.
Oh, that's Brad Dourif's daughter?
That's his daughter. Yeah, I think it would
That's
be really
why
cool
she.
if he like handed it off to her in some way. Like if she could, because she does a good impression of her dad, but obviously it's like
Yeah,
a feminine version of it. But like
but they already
if
have Bride of Chucky is already not Lily
well
Tomlin,
at
but
the end of Cult, her Lily, what's her name?
Uh,
Lily
which one? Tom?
Tomlin? No.
That sounds
no,
familiar.
Lily Tomlin is somebody different. Bride of Chucky is Jennifer Tilly.
Jennifer Tilly.
Yes.
Jennifer Tilly and Brad Dourif's daughter, like they meet at the end of the movie, Chucky having possessed her, and they like kiss and they get in the car together, and it's like Chucky and his bride. And then like the doll version of Jennifer Tilly is in the back being like, like, what is this? What's happening? So anyway, I don't know. I love Chucky. I think I've got it out there now that I really do like the Chucky world that
The
they've
Chucky
created.
verse.
The Chucky verse, yeah. Yeah. I think that Brad Dourif he has a very unique voice, and when you watch The Exorcist 3, he is, I think, in my opinion, the best part about that movie, next to the detective and the priest relationship, and the detective is really good as well. But he's so creepy in all the ways that Chucky is creepy, but he doesn't have that like humor to him, so it's just the creepy Brad Dourif kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. He's got a good face too. He's got an interesting face.
Yeah, and there's no levity to Chucky in this movie. That doesn't show up till the second movie.
No,
And
I
then
was expecting a harder comedy than it was, but it was. At first, it was funny that bit, like we talked about the opening, with the kids spilling his, garbage everywhere. It's fucking breakfast
Man, that
trash.
pissed me off so
Yeah.
much. Oh,
But
also,
then after that,
did
it
toasters?
just-
Did you have to actually pop the toast on the toasters yourself, or was there not settings? Like,
They're
how's
setting. No, if
was
anything,
probably-
they popped and they popped up too high when in the
It was
80s.
probably just like an old shitty toaster because she couldn't even afford like $100 doll or whatever, right? So it's
That's
like
expensive.
I
Yeah,
know, but like
1988.
That'd be like
listen, I'm just
$400
saying that.
right now.
Listen, I'm saying that if her son's birthday's coming up, she can't afford to buy him the doll. She's probably not going to be able to afford to hire a toaster repairman to come repair her toaster.
Sidebar, quick little sidebar. Jason, what's that poster behind you?
Oh, it's. I'm not going to show it because it's technically a map of where I live.
Because what?
It's technically a map of where I live. It's my neighborhood, and then there's a heart on this. It's the neighborhood, and then there's a heart on where I live. I don't want to put just in case.
In the internet land.
Exactly.
Your crazy
I was about to be like,
fans
look.
are gonna find you.
It's true, and I have lots of them. All three of them. Wait, that's us. Just on this call. I think Brian's still here. I assume Brian, just for fun, puts us on his phone with the sound off across the room and just like plays video games or watches the movie, just to help us out.
Or he has it on his TV, like just our giant faces on his TV.
So we have just about 10 minutes left here. We had more to talk about than I thought.
One more question.
All right.
How like is he strong? Like he's in a doll.
I was wondering the same thing. Why does he have human strength?
Yeah. How does that?
I think that he has. Whatever, yeah, I think that he has like the strength that he had, like, but he's tiny, so like it's all pent up into this little form. Okay. Because if I was to try and bite your arm, Jason, and try and bite through your flesh, I probably could do it if I bit hard enough, but I couldn't like rip off a chunk of your flesh. I don't.
No, that bite mark that she has on her arm was fucking one of the grosser things in the movie.
Yeah.
When she's like, "Look what he did to me," and I was like, well, "that looks like you got bit by a dog."
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like I could probably bite somebody hard enough to do that, but I couldn't like rip off like a chunk of, if he had magic strength, He'd be like picking up ottomans and throwing them at people and stuff.
That's true.
But he also does hit that woman in the head with a toy hammer. It's a toy hammer, right?
So it's from a toy set,
but it looks like a real hammer, though, right?
Yeah.
Maybe okay. Well, it was the '80s.
But
so
didn't he hit her with?
Didn't care about safety standards for children's toys back then, like lawn darts and stuff.
Didn't he hit her with the small bat though? The hammer goes missing, but didn't he end up hitting her with the little hammer?
He hits
or with the bat.
He hits Andy with the bat later. He hits her in the head with the hammer, and then she like stumbles out the
right. And that other cop, who's the last cop to finally believe, is like, "We get a load of this hammer here is a kid's hammer."
Yeah, it's like a tiny little hammer, but it has a metal end to it.
That's how you build stuff.
Yeah, goddamn '80s, man. They were like, also, yeah, let's just give
Andy,
kids chemistry sets
like,
that have acid.
I already saw this episode. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky. You have 3 channels. You're lucky to be watching a TV show that you like.
Yeah, and just let Chucky watch his favorite show, The News, starring him, Charles Lee Ray, as a murdering,
doing murders.
Also, Charles Lee Ray is a very good murderer name. It sounds like if your name is Charles Lee Ray, you're like predestined to be a.
Well, that's what Kaylin just said. It was the combination between those 3 serial killers. It sounds like.
Right. Yeah. It's like Lee R.V. Oswald and Charles Manson and
James Earl Ray. I don't know who that one is, though.
James Earl Ray. Probably ate babies. They usually ate. If you've never heard of them, they probably ate babies and said something really hilarious as their last words.
What's worse than 10 babies nailed to a tree?
What?
1 baby nailed to 10 trees?
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Disgusting. Is it worse, though? Maybe it's the equal amount of worse. Or no, I think the 10 babies is worse.
No, man, 1 baby. Oh my God,
Louise, we lost a viewer from that one.
That was my favorite joke of all time.
That was Brian. He's like, I can't deal with baby death humor.
That's where he draws the line.
Yeah. I don't know. How about there's only, I think, 6 kills in this movie, and I am including Charles Lee Ray at the beginning and also Chucky at the end.
Yeah, this isn't, like, no real horror as far as gore and kills.
No, if we want to do, like, a kill count style thing, we got to go, like, deep into the middle of some of these series. Like,
yeah.
Even Jason, I don't think, has that many kills in it. But, or not, it's not called Jason, it's called Friday the 13th, and Jason.
There's only like 8 counselors. Like, there's only like 8 people at Camp Crystal Lake. So
Camp Crystal Lake sounds like a microbrewery.
It does, yeah, by today's standards, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
like
with the last 5 minutes, let's take this bad boy home and give our final thoughts. Since Steve, you like to do a little bit of the talking. Why don't you start us off this week?
Okay. This movie is very good for the start of a franchise. I mean, obviously, they didn't really know what they had in the palm of their hands when they made it, and they didn't know what they were making at the time. And obviously didn't know that they're going to spawn 8 sequels over the course of 32 years now. With a TV show coming still, which means it's not dead. And if Ash and the Evil Dead has taught us anything, then I think this show will either get renewed for a second season or it'll sort of like breathe new life into the franchise, which is cool because that Chucky remake, while it was like commendable, wasn't great. It wasn't a good representation of what Chucky is, other than the creative deaths. I love this movie so much. For those of you watching, all 3 of you who don't know, I run D&D every Sunday, and I took the idea of Chucky and just like the amulet that he eventually gets and the chant that he says in order to like bring himself back to life or put his body into the things, and I put it into a character called Dourif, which was based on Brad Dourif. I used the name Dourif and made his name Dorf, and he's a goblin, and he talks like this. So he says, like, how do you do it, Dembala? Give me the power, I beg of you. And that's how much I like it, that I injected it into my game that I play with my friends that have been playing for many years. I think it's special, and I think that, you know, of all the haunted doll movies that came before it, and the terrifying ones that came after it, Toy Story 1, 2, 3, Annabelle.
Those horror movies.
Yeah. I don't think that the haunted doll idea will end, but I do think that Annabelle will end, and I do think The Boy will end, and I think that Chucky will keep going, and I think that it's almost like a Ghostbusters thing where it was like the right people thinking about it at the right time, creating the right thing, and it lives on, and I think it will live on. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, good fall death. What a good fall death that was when she falls out the window.
The slow motion.
Also,
Maggie,
my
friend, whatever.
My favorite moment in the whole movie is when he falls down the chimney like a weird, creepy, tiny Santa Claus and like kicks open the ash guard. Like, so good. Anyway, I really like this movie a lot, but that being said, the movies that come after it are much better. I think in terms of like the Chucky pantheon, I would list this one closer to the middle than the top. But some of the ones that are newer go down at the bottom, and some of the ones that come just afterwards go to the top. Anyway, I will give this movie a 4. A 4 out of 5.
Wow.
Pretty nice.
Simply because it let me appreciate Brad Dourif in a way that I hadn't before, because I didn't realize before I watched this movie that Brad Dourif, the guy from Lord of the Rings, the guy from Star Trek, the guy from The Exorcist, like that he was all this one guy, and that Chucky, this character that's been going forever, that he voices almost every single time, was him. And I love Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif, if you ever watch this, I love you so much. You have the best voice. You have the best voice in all of voices.
Fantastic. All right, Kellen, what are your final thoughts, buddy?
Steve, you have a way with words, and so I'll keep this short and sweet. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we got a movie title shout out in the movie either.
No, nobody was like, and that is Child's Play.
They like lock up Andy at the end.
Yeah, that would have been dope. That would have been fucking awesome if Andy said that. There's something about like 80s movies though that are just like, they have a feel to them. It's just like golden. Like it's just unmatched. And not that like that 4 is definitely a high rating. It's not an amazing movie or whatever, like to an extent. It is a solid movie though. Watching it now, so I don't have like the original, like I didn't grow up with it in the sense that I saw it back then, and so it's hard to say if as a kid I might have been a little creeped out by it. I don't think so, but like watching it now, like definitely not. But it was a solid, entertaining watch from front to back. I definitely enjoyed it, and I want to give it. I'll give it a solid 3.
Fantastic. Just to start off, I am as well going to give it a 3. I think that this is a situation for Steve where you've seen the whole franchise. You can rate it against other movies. You can put it right in the middle. Like I said, this is my introduction to the Chucky franchise. Basically was from the video game Zombies Ate My Neighbors. And in that game, each level sort of played off a different horror trope. So there was like Creature from the Black Lagoon monsters on one stage, or there was like a crazed Jason-style killer on another stage that's stalking you. And I just very vividly remember these dolls that look different from Chucky, but it's basically playing off that trope. That's all I really knew of the character, and then I assumed he was wisecracking like Freddy. Now this movie, I know it kind of gets there, but this movie is very much in the same line as I stated previously. How there's a first movie in every horror franchise where they don't hit the ground running. And from our discussion, we sort of see that there's a lot of DNA from other ideas baked into this movie that sort of come out. But it's a film franchise clearly trying to find its way into how to be a franchise. That's why I put it at a 3. Now I could see if I go and watch all the movies, I could find myself being like Steve. I see why you gave it a 4 because I would, a lot of people like Ninja Turtles 3 is a terrible movie, but if you put it up against the rest of the movies, it becomes even worse. Ninja Turtles 2 actually becomes better when you put it up against all the other movies. So I see what you're saying. So I'm going to give it a 3, and it actually did the rare make me want to immediately go watch the rest of the movies. Not like someday I'll get to them. I'm going to watch Child's Play 2 tomorrow.
I mean, it's October.
You better.
The month.
I had planned on watching all the Friday the 13th movies this month, but I kind of just want to watch the Child's Play movies this month.
They're better.
So, yeah.
They are better overall because Jason is the same thing. It's just different people every time. That's not necessarily 100% true. There are some recurring characters throughout, but Child's Play is like there is a lore and there's like stuff that grows beyond it, whereas Jason just becomes more gross looking until and then he goes to space.
And the kills become grosser and grosser.
There's one where he starts barfing himself into other people, and then other people are Jason. It gets like, okay.
I like the one where he fights Freddy in dreams, which is like really the only one I've actually the first one, and then Freddy versus Jason are the only movies I've actually seen.
I haven't seen that one yet. I'm gonna watch it soon.
It's great. This has been another episode of Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, you slut! Did you see this one, you slut?
I saw this one, you fucking bitch, you slut. I'm gonna teach you to fuck with me.
And for Steve and Kaylin, I'm Jason.
Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
For Jason and Steve, I'm Kellen.
And hopefully Jason can cut out that thing I just did. And I'm Steve. For both of these guys, I saw it. Did you?
You slut.
Oh, God. I regret everything.